All right, it's time for episode number 106 of the Press Box Podcast. And as we always do, this episode will be our NFL recap episode. We'll recap week 9 of the NFL season, was just concluded the other night. Talk about some of the games that stood out and take a look at a few of the games coming up from week 10, as well as touch on other topics around the league that come up, as we always do. But before we get to that, follow us on Twitter if you're not already, at PressBoxPod on Twitter. Again, like to interact with you guys there, as we always say. You can follow us on YouTube or subscribe on YouTube. Search Pressbox Podcast. We have a lot of things up there. And then finally, on iTunes, if you're listening to this on iTunes, subscribe, get the latest episodes, and rate and review as well. We like to hear your reviews on iTunes just as much as we like interacting on other social media platforms. So with that being said, let's get into this episode, NFL recap, week 9 of the Pressbox Podcast. Time for our NFL recap episode. Like we said, week 9, just wrapping up the other day with Monday Night Football. And let's get right into the game. So first of all, from week 9, let's talk about the Cowboys getting kind of handily beat. It was 30-16 final score, but I think the Broncos were up a little more than that at one time. We've talked about the Broncos a little bit on the podcast, kind of thought they were a little more of a fake contender than a real contender, but 5-4 now in the AFC West, with the Chiefs 5-4 and the Raiders 5-3. I think the Broncos are right in the thick of it and showed that they can play with an elite team. I guess the Cowboys were 6-1 and beat them in Dallas. What did you think of that game?
Yeah, that was one of the more surprising games in my mind. For everything you just said, I never took Denver seriously in their division or in the NFL as a whole. I didn't think they were as good as their record,
Right.
In Dallas, when you first said an elite team, I kind of thought, elite. But then you made a good point that you said they were 6-1. So, what is the elite team if it's not 6-1?
Right. The record, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm saying I can't complain with that after thinking about it more. Whether you want to call it an elite team or not, it's certainly a team I didn't think Denver was going to beat 30-16. So I guess Denver, I still don't think Denver's going to make any noise in the playoffs or anything, but I have to consider them to win that division now, possibly, because we all know how the Chiefs are. We've talked about that many times. The Raiders surprised me losing to the Giants, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah. And
the Chargers have never really they seem like they're always on the verge of trying to show you they're an elite team now, but they never can pass that. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's that point.
The question is kind of the broader AFC West. I mean, we can go ahead and touch on the Chiefs game. You kind of have to throw this one out. They won 13-7. I guess you could say they kind of inched by a Packers team without Aaron Rodgers, right? So, I mean, you had Jordan Love making his first career start. You got to think that, the way that game went, if Rodgers is in there, they beat the Chiefs, right? 13-7.
Yeah, the Chiefs basically squeaked by the Packers team without Aaron Rodgers. So the Packers have Aaron Rodgers. I think the Chiefs get beat pretty handily.
Right.
And the Packers, they knew this, but I think they're realizing now just how badly they need Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they knew that already, but it's just proving that point,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that would have been it would have been big if the Packers could have beat Kansas City without Rodgers, but I don't think they're looking at this any certain way. I mean, they understand what happened, and they understand that they'll be fine when they have Aaron Rodgers. But the Chiefs go ahead.
Yeah. That is kind of just a throwaway. I mean, it's a bonus if you can win, but it's not like Aaron Rodgers injured for multiple weeks. He should be back this week. He just had to sit out for COVID.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's the bright side of that too. I mean, and look at this game. I mean, the Packers didn't score any points until the fourth quarter. Uh, and it just looked like I didn't watch much of this game, but the plays I did watch, it just didn't look like Love really had it. Like at least in this game,
Yeah,
looked
yeah.
like
And
he's
then
maybe not ready to start.
Packers knew that. And then the Chiefs, you got scored one offensive touchdown. I think Mahomes threw a touchdown pass to Kelsey, where in years past, he probably throws 3 or 4 touchdowns against that Packers team. So,
Yeah.
I think, you look at, I don't have the schedule in front of me, but when they have to go to Denver, I'm not sure they win that game. I think Denver is a tough place to play. I think Denver can beat them head to head. So I think that division's kind of a toss up right now, and I would give Denver just as good a chance as anybody.
Well, we'll see what we'll see kind of what I was going to say. We'll see what the Chiefs are made of in the next few weeks, but I think we know. But they'll have to prove us wrong, I guess, because they go to Las Vegas next week, and then they host the Cowboys, and then it looks like I think they have a bye. No, they have a bye maybe after that, and then they host the Broncos, and then they host Las Vegas, then they go to LA Chargers. So they have a lot of the division games coming up here. Definitely.
They already play at Denver.
Say what?
Or do they already play at Denver?
No, they haven't played Denver yet, so they got to play.
Okay.
They got to do. They host Denver on Sunday, December 5th, and then they play at Denver the final game of the season, Sunday, January 9th. So
Yeah, a crucial game. So
that last game could be for the division, Chiefs at Broncos.
Could be the Sunday night game. They move up with big playoff implications. While we're on that division, we'll just go ahead and touch on the Raiders Giants. We don't have my co-host Ralph Miranda here on this episode. Obviously, we know how he feels about the Giants, and he can probably give a better insight to that game. But again, a little bit surprising. We talked a little bit off the air about kind of what we were picking with our games this week, and I thought some of the turmoil off the field with the Ruggs, and even going back to Gruden a little bit, because as we talked about, initially they get fired up to play for Gruden, who they think was wrong, but he is a good coach, and now you're seeing as the weeks move on, they don't have him. The Raiders now 5-3. I don't think I ever really believed in them that strongly, but do you think this is more about the Giants or the Raiders?
Well, I'll go back. I probably believed in the Raiders a little more than you did. I wouldn't say like really strongly, but I think throughout the season, I always kind of thought that they were at least as good as their record was showing, or maybe even better. But now I'm starting to think, they don't have it. I think this. I don't know what to answer your question. I'm not sure if this is more shows signs of promising things for the Giants or the problems with the. I think this shows the problems with the Raiders. Really, I mean, I don't think. When I was looking at this spread this week before the game, I was thinking about, the Ruggs off the field stuff could hurt them. But ultimately, I thought, look, they seemed to bounce back pretty good right after Gruden's thing. So I thought with this Ruggs thing, it shouldn't be as he's on the field. So it might be, you could say it has more of an impact. He's actually on the field. But I thought the Gruden thing might have more of an impact actually. But I think looking at it, it might just be that they're in turmoil right now, and they were on the road, which doesn't help. But the Giants, though, I think this is just another sign, which I've said. I also think this is another sign what I said when they went into Kansas City and lost, but they made it close. The Giants are dangerous. Like they have some talent. They just usually make silly mistakes or mistakes you can't make in crucial situations that lose them games. But if they can limit those, they can beat a lot of teams, I think.
Yeah. If you were to, random play the season, about 10 times, there's, where they could be like 5-4 or 4-5 or something like that. I think they just had some like you said, mistakes that cost them some games early in the season, but they may be a little bit better than the 3-6 record and could upset some teams down the stretch.
Yeah. I mean, looking back at the record, they definitely should beat Washington. Yeah. They could have beaten Atlanta.
Right.
I'll give the Broncos that one because the Broncos looked to be pretty good. So I'll give them that one clear. I don't remember exactly if the Giants had a lot of mistakes that game or what, but They should have beat Kansas City. They jumped off sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Dallas is still in control of that division, but you never know. We'll see if the Giants make some noise. I want to stay in the AFC here. Talk about the AFC East a little bit here. Now, I've kind of alluded to this a little bit all season that, stuff last year, it's kind of the Bills division, but they still have to prove it. Like, don't count the Patriots out. Now, the Bills come out and lose 9-6 to Jacksonville, which is kind of ridiculous if you're a legitimate playoff caliber team based on how Jacksonville's been this year. Can't even score a touchdown. Now, granted, they didn't give up a touchdown either, but they couldn't score one. And they lose that game. Meanwhile, the Patriots beat the Panthers 24-6, right? Now the Patriots are 5-4, Bills are 5-3. That's going to look like it's going to be a good matchup for kind of control of that division. What are your thoughts on that division and then kind of that Bills Patriots struggle?
Yeah, I'm starting to think the Bills. I'm starting to think that, I think we touched on this earlier that they need to keep. I think I said they need to at least keep their eye on the Patriots. Now I think they really need to be careful because I have more faith in New England than I do Buffalo.
Yeah.
Why would I not? They have Belichick still. Josh Allen's a better quarterback than Mac Jones, but Mac Jones is kind of a safer quarterback right now.
He's a little more consistent. Josh Allen is capable of putting up 35 points or capable of doing what he did this week, not scoring any touchdowns, right? It's kind of more wild.
He's kind of like what I compare Jameis Winston and Trevor Siemian. I compare them. Josh Allen has a lot more upside. Right. He always hit that. Whereas Mac Jones, he doesn't have as much upside, but he's going to give you kind of the similar performance all the time,
Yeah. Doesn't do somebody like that, I think. Yeah.
You'd rather have somebody like that?
Similar to a Kirk Cousins or somebody that's not going to blow your socks up, but is consistently pretty solid.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. And looking at the actual game with the Bills and Jaguars, that was another one I was really shocked at. This last week, kind of the last 2 weeks, there have been a lot of games that make me scratch my head. I don't really know what to make of them, and I'm starting to think do I really know any of these teams like I thought I knew?
Yeah.
After week seven, I thought I had a good idea of all these teams and looking at the, if I was making the picks of who I think is going to win, I had a good feeling. But now I don't know what to think. And yeah, how do you only score 6 points against the Jaguars? Let me see here. There's something else I want to touch on in that game too in a second, but the Jaguars. These are the points they've given up this year, all right?
Okay.
Starting with week 1. 37, 23, 31, 24, 37, 20, 31, and then the Bills score 6.
Yeah.
So, and the Bills they don't have a bad offense, so that's just it's kind of incredible. And I don't think this is all Bills to me. Though all Bills. I guess give the Jaguars credit, they won, but this I don't have any better. I don't have any more of a positive view of Jacksonville after this game. Trevor Lawrence was 15 of 26 with 118 yards.
Yeah,
that's it. The running back Carlos Hyde, 21. I think it's Carlos. 21 carries, 67 yards.
Yeah.
They had no offense either. It's just they won.
Line straight out of 1976, 15 completions for basically 100 yards. That's not a lot right there.
No, and Allen, like we talked about, Allen was 31 for 47, 264, but he had 2 picks. He makes more plays, but he also sometimes can look. I'm not worried about I don't think the Bills need to be worried about Josh Allen or anything. I'm just saying this is what you get sometimes. I hope he continues to improve. Another thing. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go
ahead.
Another thing I was going to say is they made a big deal about this during the game. I think it's ridiculous. I want to ask you about it. I kept seeing this watching Red Zone. Of course, Scott Hansen was all over it, and then I saw it everywhere else too. Sports talk stuff. There's a linebacker for the Jaguars named Josh Allen, and he had a big game. I forget his stat line, but one of the things he did was he sacked the Bills' Josh Allen. So there was this big thing about one stat. They said that it was the first time since sacks started being recorded as a statistic that a defensive player has sacked an opposing team's quarterback when both of them had the same name. And I was like,
"Hey, I believe that. Because I can't really think about when this happened before, but Yeah, that's kind of I didn't see that on the red zone, but Scott Hanson beating that kind of stuff up. I can see that.
Oh yeah, and then like every time, like when you're watching other games and they'll give you an update of another game, like they were talking about it. It's like,
right?
Who cares? And then Scott Hanson, I think, said the first time in NFL history, which I think the one that I read that said first time since sack was a stat is probably more likely because who knows if somebody did this in like 1950.
Correct.
It was just considered a tackle, I think, before sacks became a stat. So it's hard if you can't go back and figure that out.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was ridiculous. They were harping on that way too much. It's not that big of a deal. It's like it's a coincidence, but or it's I don't know.
Up on the Red Zone channel, but so right now, if you had to favor somebody, you taking the Patriots over the Bills in a head-to-head matchup.
Let me look at their schedules real quick. I don't have to. I might read out some big games, but I just want to look at before I answer that. Well, the Patriots and Bills play Monday, December 6th. That's going to be big, and that's the first time they meet. And they play again Sunday, December 26th. That's the third to last game of the season. That could be the game that's for the division. The Bills, they have some easy games. They play the Jets. Steph played the Jets twice. Play the Falcons, but then again, the Jacksonville was an easy game for them. Supposed to be.
Right.
Let me look at the New England schedule here real quick. I want to give you an informed answer. Browns. Yeah, I looking at the schedules. The Patriots got to play the Browns, the Titans. I still have to probably give the edge to the Bills, but just very so slim. I think it might come down to that last game they play each other at third to last week of the year.
Yeah.
How about you?
I'm going to give the edge to the Patriots. Kind of like I've alluded to, Buccaneers and the Cowboys game could have been a toss-up either way. They very well could be 7-2 right now. So I'm still going to favor the Patriots. I think if I had to pick right now, I say they win that division.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. It was tough for me to decide, so I can definitely see that viewpoint.
Yeah. Take a look here. Let's talk about the Browns-Bengals a little bit. We've kind of heaped a little bit of praise on the Bengals and Joe Burrow the past few episodes. I think at one point they were 5-2. They come out at home against the Browns and could beat 41-16. Again, like a team be a playoff team. Now I'm questioning that even. I never really thought they were a true contender, and neither are the Browns, let's face it. But what were your thoughts on that game? And I think that you might see the Bengals not make the playoffs actually, where I thought they maybe could.
Yeah, that was one of the more surprising games in my mind. Also, they were 5-2 because they lost to the Browns this week and they lost to the Jets the week before that, and they're 5-4 right now. So, yeah, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. The Jets thing, they lost by 3 points. You can maybe say there's a blip on the map. I think this was a good chance to come back out and win another one and show people we're okay, especially without. There's a lot of turmoil. There's always turmoil in Cleveland when you got Baker Mayfield at quarterback and all those other guys they got. But they got rid of a big chunk of that turmoil with what's his name, Odell Beckham. But that's the game.
The latest is my waivers. So he's a free agent now.
What you say? He's a free agent now?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we can talk maybe after we get to talk about this game. We can talk about where we think he may land. But that was, they couldn't have asked for a much easier game than that after that Jets game to try to get a win. Surely easier than the games they have coming up. They play Vegas, Pittsburgh, LA Chargers. And their schedules too. They have those teams. They have San Francisco can beat them. They got to go to Denver. They have to play the Ravens again, which who knows. The Ravens almost lost to Minnesota. They came back and won in overtime, but and then they play the Browns again in the year and the Chiefs. Yeah, so I don't know. The Bengals are this season. They're at least I think they're not a contender, but I still like them. I'm still big on, like we said, Joe Burrow and the team moving forward, just not this year.
Yeah, players, which lends itself to some of this inconsistency you're seeing. But yeah, I still think their future overall is pretty bright. In that division, I think the Steelers now, I like them to make the playoffs. I can't remember if I picked them at the start of the season, but they're not they're not dead yet. They win a Monday Night Football. And you could say, too, that the Bears screwed up with that taunting penalty at the end of the game.
Well,
It's kind of – you go ahead. Yeah.
There were a lot of questionable penalties against the Bears, but
yeah. Steelers didn't win the game. They're 5-3. I think they sink into the playoffs. I still think the Ravens win that division. They're 6-2 now, and they play the Dolphins this week, and I think they win that game. So I still think they have the upper hand there, especially with So I think the Ravens win that division. I think the Steelers get into the playoffs over, somebody like the Bengals, who I thought might have a chance earlier.
I agree with that. I mean, if you're looking at this, only one playoff team's coming out of the AFC South, probably.
Right.
But then again, though, I don't know if I'll say Pittsburgh's going to make it, because I could see AFC West could have two or three playoff teams. Yeah,
I think most likely the Bills and the Patriots both get in, so that's two.
Yeah,
you have
Baltimore.
Say you have the Steelers and the Ravens, that's another two. Right. So you have the Titans, that's 5, and then your 6 and 7 come from the West. That makes sense. Yeah,
that could work. Yeah, so that's not bad pick there.
Yeah. Titans on Sunday night. This is a game that going back to last week, I was on my radar, the top game for this week. Titans come out and beat the Rams fairly handily, 28-16 final. I think they were up by more than that at one point. They got a big showing from their defense. They scored a defensive touchdown, had another pick that set them up right at the Rams goal line. The Rams made some mistakes, you could say, but Rams, one of the favorites in the NFC. Titans without Derrick Henry, come out and beat them, and they're 7-2.
Yeah, the Titans were up 21-3 at one point. Looks like in the second quarter, 21-6 going into the fourth quarter.
Right.
That was a very good win. For all the reasons you said. I mean, I didn't know if I would think they'd win that game with Derrick Henry, and without Derrick Henry, I definitely think they're going to win. Something strange about the Rams. I think I touched on this some last week, and this was at home too. They shouldn't have a problem, but especially when you something strange about the Rams to begin with, and then when they have to go on the road, sometimes late in the year or if they have to go on the road in the playoffs, I'm not liking their chances too much. If it's a cold weather, non-dome team. Adrian Peterson, let's see what he did. They didn't give him the ball enough, obviously.
He scored a touchdown.
He scored a touchdown from the 1 or 2 yard line. 10 carries, 21 yards, touchdown. Yeah. I mean, you got to get more than 10. Why is D Foreman getting 5 and McNichols getting 7 carries?
Now, 25. I'm glad they started him. They seemed to, at least initially, he got most of the snaps, but as you said, as the game went on, they started working these other backs in, which I don't understand.
Well,
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, there is B. He looked like he looked good still. Like he's still, he had some good cuts and it's still a good back. But he just needs more touches. That's all.
Yeah, he got the most carries on the team, but I don't see why. Well, I don't see why there's any reason to not give him all the carries. Not going to wear him out. I mean, he's near the end of his career.
Yeah, right. What are you saving him for? Yeah.
Yeah, that. But the only thing I'll give him, we'll see what they do in their next game. The only thing I'll give him is maybe they felt like they wanted to ease him back into it since he'd been out of football for a while.
Yeah, and if that was really their reasoning, and they come out this week and give him a lot more, I'll say, good job.
Yeah, because I can maybe see them say oh, let's cap him at 10 carries or not much more than 10 carries. So I don't know. We'll see that. But do you have any thoughts about the Rams? I mean, are you worried about them or no?
I'm not worried. I think that I don't know exactly, but coming out of this week now, I'd still put the Packers with Rodgers and the Buccaneers ahead of them in the NFC as far as Super Bowl contenders. If they somehow had to go to Lambeau, you could forget about it. And same with, I think Tampa Bay either way. I think that, they beat them at home a few weeks ago or about a month ago in the season. But especially if they have to go to Tampa or either way, I think Tampa beats them in the playoffs. So, I'm not worried about them per se. I think they finished with a good record and win that division. And are Super Bowl contenders still. I wouldn't favor them against those two teams.
Yeah, I agree. Tampa Bay and Green Bay definitely over the Rams. And I don't think the Rams or I think they're kind of on par even with Dallas in my mind, kind of.
No.
And the Cardinals are gonna, I think, the Cardinals could finish with a better record, but the Rams are more of a playoff contender than the Cardinals are. So, yeah.
Same page there. Okay. Looking ahead to Week 10 a little bit here. I think we touched on most of all the games from Week 9. All right. So kicking off on Thursday with the Ravens at the Dolphins. Like I said, I think the Ravens win that game. Even though it is in Miami, I think they win. Some of the other games that stand out here. Saints 5-3, Titans 7-2, and Tennessee. I think that'll be a good game. Then you've got the Falcons and Cowboys. That's interesting because they're a little better than the Falcons, but you got the Falcons at 4-4 at Dallas 6-2. Can they bounce back and win that game? What are your thoughts on that game and maybe some other ones you see here on the schedule?
I think I'm interested to see the Titans and Saints because everything tells me the Titans should win, but I don't know. The Titans can be up and down. I think they need to win that game, though. That's a game they need to win, the Titans.
I agree.
The Falcons and Cowboys, I don't see the Falcons having a chance, but I'll just leave it there. I don't see the Falcons having a chance to win that game. I'm not sure how much the Cowboys will win by, but they should win that pretty easily. So I'm not too concerned. I probably don't have my eye on that game too much. The Browns and Patriots would be interesting. Both teams are 5-4. They have New England, who's the home team, favored by 1.5. I think the Patriots are going to win, but again, if the Patriots are going to be real contenders for the Bills, they should beat the Browns. The Bills need to bounce back and beat the Jets.
Game that stands out just because of, like you said, if they come out and handle the Jets like they're supposed to, you can write the Jaguars game off a little bit and be like, okay, that was kind of a fluke. But they come out and struggle and don't score points, or definitely if they lose, then you got to start worrying about them a little bit.
Yeah. The two other games I'll touch on. Chiefs Raiders is interesting. You have two teams.
Chiefs Raiders, yeah.
Yeah, if the Gruden and the Ruggs thing had happened to the Raiders, I would say Raiders all the way in this game. But after that and their bad performance last week, it could be close, but I think the Raiders should still win because it is a home game for them. Somehow they have the Chiefs favored by 2.5, which I don't know about that, but they know what they're doing. They make these odds, obviously. And then the Monday night game, the Rams and 49ers. Again, the Rams should win that pretty easily, but I just want to see if they do.
Yeah. The 49ers, where there's never really in doubt. Cardinals won by, I think, basically 2 touchdowns. I think them and the Rams are both decidedly better than the 49ers. I think the Rams don't really struggle. I think they win that game, by a comfortable 10 to 14 points. That's what I would think.
My other thing, though, is this is a primetime night game, which in my mind means that kind of anything could happen. So that's another. If this was a late game on Sunday, I say yeah, definitely. But for some reason, I just feel like I could be waking up on Tuesday and being like, the 49ers won. It seems like that happens to me all the time. I never watch all these games because they come on way too late. But they should come on like at least an hour earlier, like 7:15 instead of 8:15 or 7:30. But I usually wake up the next day and I'm shocked to see the scores like pretty much over half the time. Yeah. But anyways.
Before we wrap up here by looking at the standings, you mentioned this earlier, Odell Beckham. Where do you think he signs?
Oh, yeah.
Or okay, a few things here. Where do you think he signs / where should he sign? And then does he get signed? Or is it a scenario where, some teams like it takes maybe 4 or 5 weeks or whatever? I think he'll get signed eventually. I don't think he'll sit out the rest of the season, but I don't know that teams are just clamoring to have him on their team.
That's what I was going to say. I don't think, well, you've already seen he's not going to get picked up immediately. Because teams aren't clamoring to have him, like you said, but I think he will eventually get signed because as the weeks go by, some team will be pressing to make the playoffs or feel like they need another piece and they'll bite the bullet and they'll sign him.
Yeah. But, kind of a credit to him. Like he's built up his image so much. We think, oh, Odell Beckham, but he's not the receiver he was 4 or 5 years ago, right? Like with the Giants. I mean, you're getting just an average starting receiver now. I think you're not like some big time playmaker or superstar, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know that he definitely had a lot of skill, but I think whatever just kind of propped him up to be this superstar. When he's not really that guy.
Yeah. I can't argue with that. I don't know if I would say average, maybe slightly above, but not like a superstar. And the problem is of all the problems that come with him.
Right.
No team. Let me put it this way: whoever signs him is not going to really be happy about it. You know what I mean? But who do you think he's going to go to?
I definitely think the Raiders or the Vegas Raiders are in play. They had to release their number one receiver, and I think that they what's all have been happening with them this year. They have nothing to lose at this point. They have to try to win that division. I think he can possibly help them. So I think I would put the Raiders at the top. I think you got to watch out for the Rams. I think they put Deshaun Jackson on waivers or released him, who was kind of their quote unquote. I don't know if he was making that many big plays for him. That's why I released him. So I think those two teams come to mind right off the bat: Raiders or Rams. I think, and we've talked about this too. Whoever it is, I think it's got to be a team that has a pretty established, strong quarterback that's not going to put up with his BS, right? That he can't really push around. Which I'm not sure Baker Mayfield is that guy, or really even Daniel Jones. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, or maybe Mayfield was the one who was going to snap back at him and just cause more problems. One of the two.
Right. Yeah.
I like the Raiders. I can see him in the Raiders uniform. I can see, and it's just like the Raiders don't care. They'll get anybody. You know what I mean? Like,
based on what's already happened to them, Odell Beckham's not a big deal right now. Yeah.
Exactly, that too. And when you just think about like franchises with a squeaky clean record and like clean cut players, the Raiders don't come to mind. That and the Rams, I could see that maybe they'd be. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that I could see the Buccaneers maybe. Not that they need him, but I could just see that because I think Brady obviously knows how to handle him because they have Antonio Brown. Brady turned that around, and I could just see them adding another piece, and just like continuing their march to another Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and I can see the story where like he kind of quiets down, then all of a sudden he makes some key catches in the playoffs. The Super Bowl is like a redemption story, I think we talked about the Titans maybe because what's his name has been hurt a lot this year, right? The guy Julio Jones. Yeah. So the Titans are kind of, I think, like I said, I don't know if they'll probably win the division, but I think especially now with Derrick Henry out, they probably feel like they need something to kind of give him a little boost now.
Yeah.
The last team I'll say I don't think this never crossed my mind, but I saw somebody Photoshop him into this uniform, and maybe it was just because it was a fan account of this team, so maybe like they were just hoping for it, but it was the Ravens, which is interesting. I guess he would work with Lamar. It would work with Lamar Jackson there, maybe, but I never crossed my mind. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. One team I'll throw out there too is the Patriots, where cut you the drop of a hat if we don't like what you're doing, and he. Not that he's not on the same level as Randy Moss, but there's some similarities there where, it's 2 years Randy Moss spent with the Raiders, who's kind of underperformed, right? Then goes to the Patriots and totally different guy again, right? So I think I'm not sure they'll do it, that they're interested, but I think that's a scenario that could possibly work.
I was going to say Patriots, and you make a good point that there's no scare off their back. They'll just cut him at the drop of a hat if they want to.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking, like, I don't know if he's worth it. Like, Randy Moss, he like in Oakland, he had some really questionable years. Remember that time he just like gave up basically one game. He was on the bench, looked like he just didn't care, but he was still Randy Moss. I mean, and I think they felt like it was worth it. I'm thinking about Bill Belichick. I'm thinking about like somebody bringing this to Belichick's attention or something, and he'd just be like why? Like Odell Beckham, like why?
Brady. They had Brady at that point, who's the best quarterback in the league, arguably. They don't have that now, right? So. That was just interesting. I don't think he goes there.
That's another thing. I don't think they want to taint Mac Jones. Mac Jones is already showing promise. I don't think they want anything that's going to taint his future at all with bringing some problem receiver with him. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be interesting to see where he winds up, if he winds up anywhere in the short term here. Before we sign off, touch on the standings like we usually do. We kind of touched on the AFC a little bit when we talked about playoff teams. Bills and Patriots at the top there. I think they both get in. Ravens, Steelers at the top. And then the Steelers, Browns, and Bengals all have 5 wins. Steelers have 1 less loss. But I think they've shown themselves to be better than those other 2 teams, Browns and Bengals, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Kind of. We'll give them the edge right now. AFC South, Colts hanging around at 4-5. I think the Titans win that division still. I think they're probably the only playoff team out of there.
Yeah.
And the West is kind of wide open. That's a big Chiefs Raiders. I think you could probably see 2 playoff teams out of there, but we'll see how that shakes up. Over in the NFC, Cowboys still have a commanding lead in the East. They're probably the only playoff team there.
Yeah.
Packers still commanding lead in the North. You could argue they're the only playoff team there.
Yeah, they are.
Vikings are at second, 3-5. The South is interesting. You've got Buccaneers a game up on the Saints. I think they're in. You could see the Saints make it. They're 5-3.
I think they will.
And the Falcons and Panthers. Falcons 4-4, Panthers 4-5. I mean, they're in it for the last place, but I don't know if they'll make it, but they're not out of it, And then you've got the West, Cardinals and Rams. I think both get in. So,
I think if you're talking about Atlanta, Carolina for the last playoff, I think a team like Minnesota gets in before them.
I don't have a problem with that. They're Minnesota 3-5, Falcons 4-4, Panthers 4-5. So all kind of right there.
Maybe the Seahawks, maybe 3-5. I doubt it, but what they're doing right now, Geno Smith, you kind of got to throw that out because once they get Russell Wilson back, they're a different team, Yeah. Don't count them out either. I'd say they, always play well at home too. But it'll be interesting to see what happens this week, and we'll be back next week with our Week 10 recap, like we always are. And any final thoughts on this episode? No, that just about does it.
Sign off. As we always say, follow us on Twitter at PressBoxPod. Let us know what you thought about this episode. We didn't talk about your team as much, or you want us to touch on other topics, let us know. We'll get to that in the next one. And for Nathan, our producer, this is Joseph signing off on this episode of the PressBox Podcast. Take care.